Yes, sir. I have started recording, sir.
Okay. Yeah. I will start now. Or...
1 minute, sir. 1 minute, sir. Yes, Anu, you can start the thing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
A warm good evening to all the honorable dignitaries present in this wonderful platform. With the blessings of our beloved founder, Chancellor Colonel Dr. JPR, sir, I am happy to welcome you all for this inaugural session. On behalf of the Center for Ocean Research, we sincerely express our deepest thankfulness to our Honorable Chancellor Madam, Dr. Maria Zena Johnson, and our President, Sir, Dr. Mary Johnson, for their constant guidance, support, and encouragement in all our activities. First of all, some special thanks to all the invited speakers for their immediate acceptance for delivering their special technical talks. Now I am happy to welcome respected Director Research, Dr. Sheila Rani Madam, Honorable Guest, Dr. E. Vivekanandan Sir, respected Advisor of Satyabama University TBI, Dr. Seshadri Sir, and our Center Head, Dr. D. Inbakandan Sir. Now I request Dr. D. Inbakandan Sir to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anu.
Thank you, sir.
A warm good evening to all. It's my immense pleasure to welcome you all for the 6 days online short-term course on the adaptation of aquatic systems to climate change, reducing the impact and maximizing opportunities, jointly organized by Colonel Dr. JPR Research Park Center for Ocean Research and Ministry of Earth Sciences, Earth Science and Technology Cell. It is the right platform to inform you that Center for Ocean Research is recognized by the Ministry of Earth Sciences for Marine Biotechnological Studies and established with Earth Science Technology Cell at Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology. One of the objectives of MOES ESTC is to develop a common platform and create linkages at national and international level for collaborative thoughts and to disseminate the idea on the adaptation of marine ecosystem to the global environmental changes and for the climate-friendly augmentation of marine biological resources. As marine ecology and biodiversity research is one of the focus area of Center for Ocean Research, this 6 days online short-term course is designed as per the objective of MOES ESTC and Center for Ocean Research. I'm happy to welcome the program coordinator for this program, today's speaker, Dr. E. Vivekanandan Sir, National Consultant, Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute. It is immense pleasure to inform you all that Dr. E. Vivekanandan Sir is one of our advisors for Center for Ocean Research, and his esteemed guidance and constant support uplift every individual at our center. Even this program is designed and framed only with his support. Thank you, sir. We are happy. I'm very happy to welcome the chairperson, Dr. Sheila Rani ma'am. Actually, she will join the session maybe after 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm very happy to welcome her also. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Seshadri sir, our advisor of Satyabama Technology Business Incubator, for his continuous support and guidance in all our activities. This virtual course is framed as a 6 days program and planned for single session each day between 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the convenience of this participant. The following topics are presented in the course by the expert. The topics are ecosystem-based approaches to adapt to climate change, prospect of technological intervention, reducing economic cost of adaptation, sea level rise and climate change and science communication, and adapting the communities and enhancing their livelihood. I'm really happy to thank all the speakers of this program. As I already mentioned, Dr. Vivekanandan sir, who is being with us today. And the coming day speakers are Dr. Vijan George, Senior Program Specialist, Fisheries, SARC Agriculture Center, Bangladesh, Professor S. Nagaratnam, Chairperson, Department of Communication, Madurai Kamarajar University, Dr. Sham Salim, Principal Scientist, CMFRI, Dr. A. Salim Khan from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and Dr. S. Velvili, Principal Scientist, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. It is the right platform to inform that the participants are heads, associate professors, assistant professors, PhD scholars, UG and PG students, and IUC and commission member for this program. On behalf of Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, I once again welcome all the participants. And as a final note, I wish all the participants to use this platform in the best way to utilize the informative lecture in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your welcome note, sir.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. E. Vivekanandan, sir, to share few words about the program.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank all of you, and particularly Dr. Sheila Rani Ma'am, Director Research, Dr. Seshadri, Dr. Inbakandan, and his entire team for providing me this opportunity as a coordinator as well as to deliver this talk. In fact, we thought that by mutual discussion with Center for Ocean Research, that climate change could be an ideal topic for the six-day online program. Because as far as the oceans and climate change is concerned, there are a lot of information on the terrestrial systems with relevance to climate change. But it's only very in recent years, maybe in the last 5 years or less than 5 years, a lot of information are getting accumulated on climate change and its impact on adaptation options of climate change on ocean systems. So, but in India also, there are a lot of information that is coming out now with reference to oceans. So we thought that this may be, and we can use this platform to inform the interested participants and also to trigger some uh, response as well as interest among the academia, the researchers, so that they can take up the research projects as well as any development project. In fact, many people whom approached me, they wanted to know, sir, what type of research we have to do on climate change. So climate change is being talked about, I think, almost every day in the media, in the channels, etc. But people are, particularly the researchers and the students and the academia, are still very uncertain. What sort of a research should we do? In fact, I am getting a lot of such questions even from people from abroad. So, because if you want to go beyond certain limit, you need a lot of data, you need to do modeling. So you need to have some sort of a training program and also capacity building towards that. So the question is, should we have all this information, and unless we do not have this type of training programs and capacity building, will we not be able to do any climate change research? Or should we do only some laboratory work to see the temperature tolerance, etc., etc.? But I think that is not the point. I think several other avenues that are open, and anybody from even MSc dissertation to high-level modeling and things like that. Climate change is a good gives good opportunity to do a lot of research work. So whatever research work that is being done will be very much useful, in fact, for making any adaptation options or making any decisions on climate change. So the very idea of this program is exactly tuned towards that. And I hope that all the participants will be able to get some information at the end of the 6 days. Because you see the topics also, one is on economics, other one is on the technology intervention, other one is on the ecosystem approach, and the community, what community can do. and what could be done to the community to adapt. So it's a varied topic, 6 different topics. So those who are interested, they can pick up relevant points and do any study or research on that. So that sort of a capacity building has been designed, and I hope that all the participants will benefit from this 6-day or 6-hour program. And I hope that you will be benefited, and you can initiate some programs or projects either in your individual capacity or from the institution side. So that is what I want to say as the opening remarks, and I get back to you. Wish you all the best for 6 days.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Dr. Seshadri, sir, to share a few words about the program.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I don't want to take much of your time, but I just wanted to stress upon few areas. We know very well the climate change is going to be there imminent. It's something like COVID-19, what we talk about. So we are going to live with COVID-19 or pandemic, and the climate change is going to be much more bigger than the COVID-19. And we know very well, interestingly, Indian government, I want to stress upon this, Indian government has been crying for giving more importance to the environment. The word, of course, is not much known to people, or going into the minds of the people, called Swachh Bharat. So if at all we want to do something, we have to start something from Swachh Bharat area. I mean, clean country or clean India. So only if we start from that, we will get to know the problems that is associated with the climate change. And when we talk about climate change, normally people always talk about only the temperature, global temperatures. We know very well from 1906, we have been getting this kind of temperatures up to 1.6 to 2 degrees centigrade. It's going up, and world countries are talking about reducing the temperature, and thereby reducing the root cause of this, reduction in carbon dioxide. We call it as we have chlorofluorocarbons, all these things. But climate change is much more than that. So we know it is not only due to climate, temperature rise, it is much more than that. The human being has started using the entire global resources for its own uses, growth. So everything has its own, impact on the climate change. So we have to move out of that mentality, calling that we are talking only about global warming or fluorocarbons or carbon dioxide or methane or other things. And we also know, corollary to that, we also know scientists have been reporting about the changes happening in the ecosystems at large. As Professor Vivekanandan said, we were talking much about the forests, greeneries, and also terrestrial ecosystem. Less has been studied about or informed about the global water systems, especially the ocean systems. It's purely because it's too vast and it's very difficult for one to even explore that. It requires a lot of financial support and a lot of efforts. And most of our people are interested to work only in the laboratory systems. So people have to, as the professor said, people have to come out of the laboratories and go to the fields and find out what exactly is happening. Even a small change in the localized ecosystem, even we can take example of Chennai, where Chennai is made up of a lot of islands, and almost we are trying to merge the islands. We do not know what is happening to the ecosystem, small ecosystem, Chennai coast. Like that, India has, Tamil has more than 1,000 kilometers, India has more than 7,000 kilometers, and every week India has more than 15 agroclimatic or kind of climatic regions. So India is something like a small globe. We have almost all ecosystem. Just now it is said, the news says we have good snowfall in Himachal Pradesh also, wonderful snowfall. So right from snowfall to tropical to temperate to ocean ecosystem we have. And now, fortunately, Indian government is also giving more importance to blue economy. Or now we have a separate industry, ministry also to support this entire development going to happen in India. So it is right time for us to study these ecosystems. Thanks to Professor Vivekanandan for giving us wonderful ideas of taking this idea forward. And we are going to hear more than 6 community program spread over 6 days. I hope everybody will enjoy that. Thank you so much for the opportunity and wishing the program every success. Great. Please be with us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, moving to the technical session, Dr. E. Vivekanandan sir belonged to Agriculture Research Service and worked in various capacities, including Head of Division and Principal Scientist in Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute, ICAR, until 2012. Later, he worked as a consultant in the Bay of Bengal Program, Intergovernmental Organization, Chennai, India. At present, he is an expert consultant in Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute. He has over 40 years of continuous experience in marine fisheries research and development. He holds a PhD degree from Madurai University. He has pioneered the research on marine fish population dynamics, stock assessment, climate change, and marine ecosystem modeling in India. He has authored a number of research papers, book chapters, and books in different areas of marine fisheries. He has traveled widely and is associated with several international organizations in fisheries research and management. He has conducted multinational training program on fish stock assessment, ecosystem approaches to fisheries management, and science communication. I welcome you once again, sir, and the session is over to you. Thank you. Now you can share the screen.
Okay. Share screen. இது போட்டுருவாங்க. Share. Slide share. Slide. Thank you very much once again. Good evening to all of you. So I will, Dr. Inbakandan, I would like to know whether my talk can be
Yes,
for
sir.
1 hour or I have to complete by 7 o'clock.
No, sir. You can make it as 1 hour, sir. No problem, sir.
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you very much. My topic is on ecosystem approaches to adapt to climate change. This I will be specifically focusing my presentation on marine fisheries, particularly ecosystem approach to marine fisheries for its adaptation to climate change. But this approach of ecosystem could be followed to other systems as well. Like it can be to terrestrial systems, it can be to management of environment, it can be to management of pollution. But I will give an example mainly from the point of view of marine fisheries. But it can be applied to any other system. You can plan it in such a way that it can be applied to other systems as well. So I think you are all able to see the slides clearly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The climate change impact on marine ecosystems, as I said in my opening remarks, maybe until about 5 years ago, we were not there were not many publications, there were not much information on the impact of climate change, particularly on the marine systems, unlike the terrestrial systems. So, but now in the last 5 years or so, a lot of evidences are accumulating globally as well as in India on the impacts of climate change on marine ecosystems, its biodiversity, as well as on fisheries. So now we cannot say that we do not have information, but we have got quite a lot amount of information available because about 10 years ago, the publications related to marine systems were only about 1% of what we have globally on the impact of climate change on the marine ecosystems. But now it's no longer the case, and we have started getting a lot of evidences on the impact of climate change on the marine systems. Marine systems, by that I mean the ecosystems, its biodiversity, as well as on the fisheries, etc. So I will try to share some of these information which we have for India and how we can apply this ecosystem approach. I'll try to explain what exactly is ecosystem approach, because there is a lot of misconception and also sort of a confusion what exactly is ecosystem approach. Because this ecosystem approach is being talked about globally now as a solution to several to overcome several issues. So, but there is a lot of there's a lot of confusion in understanding what exactly is this ecosystem approach. So, my prime objective of this presentation is to make clear what is this ecosystem approach and how we can apply with focus on climate change adaptation. That is the main purpose of my presentation. So if you see the impact of, I think if you see what are the challenges and uncertainties of impact of climate change on marine systems, I have tried to develop a sort of a chain. The first one is that there are the ecosystem is very complex and there are specific issues for each type of ecosystem. For example, ecosystem by ecosystem, we mean different locations. Ecosystem could be coastal ecosystem, could be offshore ecosystem, could be lagoon ecosystem. So there are different types of ecosystems, and each ecosystem in specific location have got specific issues. So what issue we have in the coastal ecosystem in Chennai coast may not be the same what we have for Kerala coast or for the Gujarat coast. So there are specific issues and the complexities are also specific for each ecosystem. And we also have multi-scale, so these issues it percolates into multi-scale interactions of seascapes and landscape. So the interaction between the seascapes and landscape also add to the complexities of the ecosystems. And this is also exacerbated by the scarcity of data which we have, and also difficulties in obtaining data in complex systems. By data, what I mean is that not only data on the biological side of the ecosystem, could be the economic side, it has to be the social side, the technological side, as well as the governance side. So if you see, there are 5 different arms if you want to have any system to get adopted. What is the biological system, the technological system, the economic system, the social side, as well as the governance side. So unless we try to address all these 5 different arms of these systems, and unless we have the data for these systems, it may not be possible to address the entire gamut of issues and come to some adaptation options. So what is required is to come out and create a common understanding of these important issues related to the biological side, the societal side, the economic side, the technological side, as well as the governance side. So we need to have a common and overall understanding if you want to know what are the issues, and if you also want to develop adaptation options in relation to climate change. And so all these things actually accumulate into developing robust and practical models, impact models, which will lead into developing adaptation options. So these are actually the challenges and uncertainties that are there when you talk about impact of climate change. Unless you know the impact of climate change, it is very difficult to come out with adaptation options. So unless you know what are the basic issues in the system, and then only you can address that issue by developing adaptation options. So now when we come to Indian marine organisms, as I said, we are getting a lot of evidences now on the impact of climate change on the Indian marine organisms. I have listed some 4 major impacts. These are particularly relevant to marine fishes, which we see that there is a shift in the latitudinal distribution of the animals. For example, you know, the annual average temperature, as you go higher up towards the northern latitudes, The annual average temperature will be less compared to the southern latitudes. That is when you go nearer to the equator in the northern hemisphere. So there is a tendency for the organisms to move towards the northern latitudes for those organisms which are in the northern side of the equator. So they try to shift their distribution towards the northern side. But if you see those organisms which are on the southern side of the equator, they try to move towards the southern latitudinal ranges. So there is a shift in the latitudinal distribution, and some organisms, some fishes, they extend their distributional boundary. That means that they are in the southern latitudinal side, as well as they also have now shifted or extended their distribution towards the northern latitudes. That happens because they are able to adapt to higher temperature in the increase in temperature in the northern latitude as well. So they are actually the fishes like the oil sardine and the Indian mackerel, which are able to extend their distribution boundary towards the northern latitude, but at the same time, they are also present in the southern latitudes as well. There is also a shift in the depth of occurrence. For example, we know that when the in as you go down to the deeper areas, the temperature is reducing. So there is a tendency for some organisms to go deeper into the seas because the temperature will be less in those depths. So but there is a limit. Each fish or organism has a range of depth in which they can occupy. They cannot go beyond certain depth. But some of these fishes and some of these organisms, they have they actually resort to uh, going down to deeper areas. And also we also find that there is phenological changes. That is, there is a shift in the spawning period from the hot season gradually towards the colder seasons. From, let us say, from April, May, which is the hottest season, towards, let us say, February and March for many of these fishes, because the temperature is slightly less during that period. So these fishes these organisms are slightly trying to shift their spawning period towards the relatively cooler months of February and March. So this is so all these factors. If we take fish as a sample, all these things have got very great economic impact. For example, if the fishes are shifting their distribution, the fishermen are not able to find fishes which they were catching earlier, some 5-10 years ago. So they are getting new types of fishes. If you take the example of Maharashtra and Gujarat in the northern latitude, if you see they are now started getting a lot of oil sardine and mackerel, which they were not getting some 15 years ago. So the fishermen are now changing their pattern of fishing, their fishing practices. They have started operating uh, nets like the ring seine, which is a very efficient gear for catching these small pelagic fishes. So they are investing in craft and gear which can catch these type of fishes. And there was no market, in fact, for these fishes in those states. But now markets are developing for this type of fishes, because these small pelagics were consumed in large quantities in Kerala, Karnataka, and Goa. But now this is being consumed in Maharashtra and Gujarat as well. On the east coast also the same thing happens. These fishes are now found in abundance in the entire east coast, and it is now found up to Bangladesh coast. So we are able to correlate it to temperature and other climate change parameters, and how this is happening and why this is happening. So these are some of the things which is impacting the marine organism. The biggest impact is on the non-mobile species like the coral reefs. which are very sensitive, and and we came out with a model stating that maybe by 2050 or 2060, it's quite likely that many of the corals may die because of height. They are very sensitive to temperature as well as acidification. So it's going to be a very great challenge for organisms like the bivalves, but to organisms like the corals. So these are some of the impacting factors on the marine organisms. Uh, well, I will not dwell much on the impact side because now the emphasis on either on research or development is gradually shifting towards identifying adaptation options. So impacts are there, but what we are going to do, if you talk about impact to the bureaucrats as well as the politicians, immediately they say, no, no, we know about the impact. Don't talk about the impact. You tell us what could be done, what we should do as an adaptation. Mitigation is another thing. Mitigation is to reduce the carbon dioxide or the GHG load in the atmosphere. But until the time we come out with mitigation options, the need is to have to develop and identify and develop adaptation options. It is something like if you go out in the intense during intense rainfall, the adaptation is that you use umbrella. That is the adaptation. We cannot stop the rain, so we have to use the umbrella, and so that we get adapted to the rainfall. So that is what we can do immediately to get adapted. We have to go to the shop and buy something in the rain. So you use umbrella and you go there and buy. So that is a simple example for adaptation. So what we could do as a sort of an adaptation in the context of climate change. We have to do the adaptation mainly because some of the trends which we are seeing now, like like the impact of acidification and also impact of let us say ocean acidification as well as rise in seawater temperature, is going to be very difficult to reverse the trend of this increase. It's going to be very difficult to reverse the trend of acidification and also the temperature rise. So we cannot do whatever measure we are going to take. It's not going to reverse the trend, maybe at least for another 100 years or so. So there is a need to adapt to climate change before, and since reversing the trend is going to be very, very time consuming and going to be very difficult. And the many trends are becoming irreversible. Already we have reached a stage in which it may no longer will be possible to reverse the trend. We are reaching that set of a stage now. So what we find is that it is wiser to develop adaptation measures. So that is why there is a very purpose why we wanted to have this platform as well, so that you will have some idea of how to develop the adaptation options in the context of climate change. So now, what is the pathway? So unless we know how it is impacting, climate change is impacting on the marine systems, it may be difficult to target which element so that we adapt to the climate change. We know climate change is happening because of greenhouse gas accumulations in the atmosphere, that in the ocean systems, it changes it have a lot of biophysical changes on the ocean systems, like it changes the temperature, increases the temperature, ocean acidification. It changes the current pattern, which is very, very important as far as the marine organisms are concerned. The direction as well as the velocity of the current is getting changed. So the current is the factor which drifts the organisms. The larvae and the juveniles are drifted by the current direction as well as the current speed. So the survival of these marine organisms are particularly in the larval and juvenile stage is very much dependent on the current. Particularly this is true for many of these fishes. So if the fish larvae are not carried to favorable destinations, they will die out. So the currents are changing now because of the difference in the density of water, in the salinity pattern, as well as in the movement of water masses. There is dissolved oxygen, there is a lot of hypoxic condition in the ocean that is developing. No oxygen zone is developing. There is intense change in the rainfall. Intensity of rainfall is increasing. We had 3-4 days back very intense rainfall, 18 to 19 centimeters in Chennai within a very short period of time. So the intensity is increasing. This is going to be a major challenge, which is going to have a lot of impact on the population, human population as well. So the intensity is going to increase. The sea level rise is another major factor which is going to have a lot of impact on the lives and the property, particularly of the coastal people. And similar to rainfall, the storm frequency and intensity, particularly the intensity of storm, is going to increase. The storm with 100 kilometers per hour, which is the cyclone, which is called the cyclones, that is going to increase in the years to come. So 100-kilometer and above cyclones are going to increase. Number of cyclones may not increase, but the intensity is going to increase. So all these factors are going to have impact on the marine ecosystem, the biodiversity, the fisheries, as well as the stakeholders, the people who are dependent on the ecosystem, the biodiversity, fisheries, like the fishermen, the traders who are involved, the populations, human populations, as well as the exporters who are dependent on these systems, they are going to be impacted by these factors. So now, if you see the actual the issues of the particularly the marine fisheries, which I'm concentrating now, as I said earlier, the fishes are now moving in directions which we are unable to predict. They are moving, as I said, they are moving towards the northern latitudes and they are moving to the deeper waters. They are also moving offshore. So from the coastal area, we find that many fishes are moving towards the offshore area. If you see the pattern of fishing in the Indian Sea, our fishing is mainly restricted to the coastal area. Let us say within earlier, some 30 years ago, it was restricted to about 20-kilometer area, but 20 kilometer from the seashore, but from the coastal area. So, but now what is happening is since fishes are moving offshore, and also there is intense fishing activity in the coastal area, and there is a reduction in the population of fishes because of overfishing. Fishes are now moving towards the offshore. So the fishermen are forced to move to the offshore. So now the fishing activity has shifted from about 20 kilometer to about 100 kilometer from the shoreline. So the fishes are moving to the offshore, and fishermen are also moving their fishing operations to the offshore area. And there is change in the fish spawning season and recruitment into the fishery. And the times are changing. Time of spawning is changing, and there is increase in abundance of low value non-fishery species. For example, we have the small pelagics which are low in value, like the sardine and mackerel, and these are replacing some of the high value fishes like the seerfish. Because these small low value fishes are able to adapt to climate change, the increase in temperature, and they are gradually replacing the higher food chain organisms, which are also high value fishes. And non-fishery resources are like you can see the puffer fish, the jellyfish, and these are also increasing in population, and they are gradually replacing the fishery resources. So these are some of the impacted important factors which is impacting the fisheries. So now what is happening is because of these changes in this abundance of these organisms, there is change in the ecosystem structure and function. For example, by ecosystem structure, we mean that the composition of ecosystem is changing. So unlike we had a large species like the tunas and sailfish, which is getting reduced, being replaced by small value fishes, the composition of the ecosystem is changing. So because of that, the function of the ecosystem is changing. The function is mainly the, if you say the food web as the function of the ecosystem, organisms lower in the food chain, like the plankton feeders, they are increasing in abundance. Unlike the predators are getting gradually eliminated, and the low value. This is some low value fishes are becoming more and more more and more common in the ecosystem. This is something equivalent to what we see in the forest systems. In the forest system, the tigers and lions are getting gradually eliminated, and we have the lower organisms like the deer and other organisms which are becoming more and more common. So this is something like that. The lions and tigers are equivalent to something like tunas, sharks, and the tuna, sharks, and sailfish, barracudas, which are large predatory organisms. They are becoming less common, and small organisms which are low in value, they are becoming more and more common. And then there is erosion of in the quality of landed fish, because the temperature is increasing, and also the fishermen, as I said, are going offshore, let us say to about 100 kilometers, and they remain in the sea for now for 5 days, to some of them remain for 20 days in the sea, and then they return after 5 to 20 days, unlike the earlier days in which they were in the sea for 1 or 2 days. So now what is happening is, because of that, the fishermen's fishing practices are changing. So they have the quality of landed fish is reducing, because they have to carry a lot of ice. If they want to remain in the sea for 15 days, they have to take a lot of ice, and because of that, because ice they are not able to carry in the smaller boats that much quantity. So what is happening is, because of that, they are not able to store the fish, preserve the fish in proper form, because of reduced quantity of ice that is available in the boat. So what is happening is, when the fishes are landing, in most cases, unless they are very high value fishes like the sailfish, when the fish is landed, it is not in good condition. So these are some of the problems which they are facing, and because of that, the fish are not sold at a higher price which they deserve. A fish which is having a value of 500 rupees per kilogram, it is sold only for 100 rupees per kilogram, because the quality of fish or the condition of the fish when it is landed, because of higher temperature and because they are not able to carry adequate quantity of ice, it is reducing. The value is reducing, the profit is also reducing. And the other factor is that, as I said, the intensity of cyclone is increasing, and the sea erosion is also increasing. You see in places like Mahabalipuram, we see erosion of the sea, and also the erosion of the sea will be aggravated by sea level rise. If the sea level is rising, the sea erosion is also increasing. Because of that, and also due to increasing intensity of cyclone, there is a danger to the life and property, particularly those for the population who are in the coastal areas. So the first two boxes, the blue boxes which I have given, this is mainly related to fishing activity. The third box is mainly to the life and property of not only the fishermen, but for the coastal population as well. So this I am just giving, it's not a whole list of issues, but I'm just flagging some very important issues which we are right now facing in the coastal areas of India. So I'm going slightly more into the deeper aspect with reference to fisheries. I'm just now trying to shift from issues and what are the potential adaptation measures that could be followed, and which are the agencies which are responsible for developing these adaptation measures. I have given some 7 examples. These issues are from what I had given in the previous slide, the issues which I have given as an example, and I'm trying to find out the adaptation measures for these issues. The first issue I have given in the previous slide, which I have given on the left-hand side, is that the fishes move offshore. So what we can do if the fishes are moving offshore, we cannot prevent the fish from moving from the coastal water to the offshore region. It's not a terrestrial condition where you have a fencing and try to prevent the fish from moving to the offshore area. It is not possible. So what we have to do is we have to adapt to this issue of moving of these fishes. So what we have to do, the researchers, the academicians, they have a greater role here. What we have to do is we have to map the availability of fishes at different geographical strata and the depth region. So what is the area to which these fishes have moved, and by doing some sampling. This can be done even from fish landing surveys by encouraging the fishermen from which depth or from which latitudinal area they are getting this fish. Now all the fishermen are having GPS in their boats. Very easily they can provide this type of information, the depth as well. So for this we need to have a technological advancement like the GPS, which I said, maybe some depth finding echo sounder, which many of the boats nowadays are having. So we have to have a mapping of these locations and see that what type of fishes are available in which area. Some of the satellite information which is disseminated by the potential fishing zone forecast will also give this type of information. So mapping this area of fishes, the species in which where they have moved, and transmit this information to the fishermen will be very much helpful to them. And not only to the fishermen, but also to the other stakeholders like the Department of Fisheries, to the traders, fish traders also will be useful, because the fish traders and fishermen are in close contact with each other. So if the fish traders say that if they can instruct the fishermen to go there and fish in, let us say, in 50 kilometers from the coast and such location and such latitude, the fisherman can take appropriate gear and go on and catch that fish. So this eliminates a lot of scouting time for the fishermen, and it reduces their reduces their fuel consumption, reduces their carbon dioxide emission also. So this is one intervention which can be made as an adaptation option for fishes which are moving offshore. The second issue could be changes in fish spawning season. I said fishes are changing the spawning period. They are spawning now more and more towards the cooler months, let us say February and March, from April and May. This is something like similar to the pollination in the terrestrial medium. Insects pollination is strictly during certain seasons for example, if you see the mango tree, it flowers during April and May, and the fruiting is during, let us say, during May and June. So now there is a change in the pollination also, pollination period. So similar to that, and the mangoes are not flowering and bearing fruit in the season, and that is changing now. So similar to that, the spawning season of fishes is also changing. Now, you know that is a fishing ban period all along the Indian coast from during April, May in the east coast, and June and July along the west coast. That is a ban period which is meant for protecting the spawners from being fished. So now we may have to have proper investigation on this and see whether this fishing ban period has to be regulated or has to be changed, because the spawning season is changing. And if the fishes are spawning more and more towards March or February, or maybe during September and October, we have to have a rethinking whether we have to change the spawning, the ban period of this fishing. So this has to be done again by researchers, and the Department of Fisheries have to have this sort of adaptation measure if we want to save the spawners. And then the third issue is increase in abundance of low-value non-fishery resources. I said that some of the low-value fishes like the sardine and also the puffer fish, the jellyfish, they are becoming more and more common now because they are able to adapt to increase in temperature and to different other factors. So now, we have to develop a potential processing and marketing opportunities for these unconventional resources. There is definitely a market for jellyfish if it is processed properly. And there is also a market for puffer fish if it is processed properly. So there are some processing methods that are available for these fishes. And there are also markets have to be developed locally, and also there are also export markets for this type of organisms. So we have to explore and promote this type of marketing opportunities, which has to be the responsibility is with the traders and the marketing organizations, like even organizations, development organizations like Marine Products Export Development Authority, and the traders also, the traders, processors, exporters. So they have to play a key role, and even the technology institutions like Central Institute of Fisheries Technology, the academic institutions who are involved, engaged with developing the technology, they can also think about developing this type of processing and of these unconventional resources and develop market opportunities. And I said the fourth issue is the erosion in the quality of the landed fish. I said now the temperature is increasing, and because of that, the fishermen are not able to land fish in good condition because they are not able to take that much of ice on board. And so what we find is that there are now improved technologies that are available. We have like ice making machine in which can be installed in the boat itself. It's called slurry ice making machine, which can in which the seawater can be pumped into this ice making machine, and on board, if the vessel is of about 50 feet or even 45 feet and above, the slurry ice making machine can do. So you can produce ice on board the vessel by making seawater. So from seawater itself is a good preservative because of salt content, and you can make ice from that. And this is a technology which is being used in some other countries. We can make use of it, and some technologies and Department of Fisheries can promote this technology so that the fishermen can produce ice and keep this ice yeah, keep the fish in very good prime condition when they land. And the Department of Fisheries also should have onshore storage facility, because now once it is landed on shore, again the temperature is a problem. So you need to have, until the fish is sold, you need to have an onshore storage facility, either at least in a few cluster of villages. You need to have onshore storage facility, which is all becoming very important now because of increase in temperature and factors related to that. And then we have the issue like increase in intensity of cyclones. We know that forewarning and sea safety measures have to be improved. We have now a very good forewarning system. Like IMD is giving this forewarning. Many voluntary organizations are also giving meteorological information. Civil society organizations are also now very active now in giving forewarning to the fishermen. MSSR of Dr. Velvili may be talking much on this sometime later in this program. But there is very good now system that is in place for forewarning. But in the case of unexpected unexpected type of cyclone. For example, we were not able to predict the cyclone Oki, how it will behave. So we need to have some measures, some proper forewarning which have to be developed for this type of unexpected cyclonic events are going to increase in the years to come. And another important thing is that the fishermen have to be, awareness have to be built, and for sea safety, they have to have sea safety implements on the boat. They are in fact very negligent of that. There are some very good sea safety implements that are available. Small raft-like structures are available, in which they can save some 5 or 6 people. Fishermen can have this raft, and they can remain in the sea for 4 or 5 days until the health comes to them. So these are some of the things which they can adopt in the case of increasing intensity when they are at sea. And then sea erosion, again, sea erosion is not direct impact of climate change, but it can get aggravated because sea level rise. So sea erosion, we have now coastal protection structures and the bioshield like developing mangrove forests that is also very effective. So this also have to be promoted in relation to the sea erosion. And there are also some objection for having coastal protection structures. So the fishermen and the line departments have to be consulted, and the role and the responsibility of the line department and civil society organizations is great when you try to develop this adaptation measure. And then again, the sea level rise, long-term plan if there is a need for because some of the low-lying areas are very much are at risk of sea level rise. So even if you think about half a meter rise in another 30 or 40 years period, a very large coastal area will be submerged in the sea. So there's a great risk for some of the many low-lying areas and coastal areas. So we have to have a long-term plan. We have to rehabilitate some of this the coastal population living in this. So that's going to involve a lot of cost for this rehabilitation. So we have to start thinking of in that some of the island countries like Solomon Island, like Maldives have already started planning on this, because there is a fear that after some 70, 80 years, some of these island countries may not exist. So there is a fear and some alarming situation in some of these island countries, and some of the coastal areas in India is also having this type of great risk. So what I'm trying to arrive at is that there is a lot of stakeholders who are required if you want to develop adaptation measure. If you want to develop adaptation measure, we have to have the stakeholders and also many type of stakeholders, and as well as engage them in partnership mode. Like we have to have the fisheries associations, traders, processors, fisheries development, other coastal stakeholders, the environmental department, researchers, NGOs, the media. We need to have the partnership of all these people if you want to develop an adaptation measure for these challenging issues related to climate change. So we also need to understand this. We also need to know the impact and also undertake adaptation. We need to do research. We need to have processing and gear technology development. We need to have a fishing regulations, which can be done by the fisheries department. We need to have develop better markets and marketing, which can be done by development organizations as well as by the as well as by the traders. We need to have a co-management, which is very, very important. Co-management by involving all the stakeholders and also having a partnership, awareness program, as well as the training for all those in the chain, right from the policymakers up to the grassroots level. We need to have awareness as well as the training program. So what I'm trying to say is that it needs a sort of an inclusive approach if you want to develop an adaptation measure for climate change. We also have to understand that climate change is not the only issue for the coastal region. We have the issue connected with overfishing. We have the issue connected with habitat degradation. For example, If you say the coral reefs are also affected, maybe by incidentally or also intentionally, we have the coral reefs, the mangroves which are affected, the lagoons, the estuaries which are also degraded. We have the issues of pollution, the domestic pollution, agricultural waste which are discharged into the coastal areas. So these all jointly affect the organisms, the coastal organisms as well as the marine organisms. So climate change is not the only factor which is affecting. So we have to have an understanding that we have to address all these factors if you want to develop adaptation options. Addressing climate change alone is not going to solve the problem. So these are affecting these systems jointly. So we need to have sort of an inclusive approach. And what we need to, if you say fisheries management, uh, then fisheries management takes care of only managing the fishery. So it takes care of fishery only as a separate entity. It doesn't take care of the other elements which I showed earlier, like pollution, like habitat degradation, like climate change. So we need to have an inclusive approach by considering all the issues. And the conventional fisheries management does not cover all the threats and issues which I showed. So it is quite likely to fail in the context of climate change if you want to follow only the fisheries management measures. So what we need to do is that we need a broader and more inclusive approach that expands from the existing management measures. So what we need to do here is that we need to have an ecosystem approach. That is what I'm trying to arrive at. So what is an ecosystem? There are many definitions for ecosystem. The very easy one is given by the Pacific Commission, which says that an ecosystem can be defined as a relatively self-contained system that contains plants, animals, including human beings, microorganisms, and non-living components of the environment, as well as the interaction between them. It's a very simple definition. There are many definitions, but I am giving a very visual interaction between these organisms, which is actually the ecosystem, and we have to address as an inclusive approach all these elements if you want to develop ecosystem approach to management. I'm giving you a sort of a pictorial representation of an ecosystem. If you see this typical image, you see that there are so many things, so many activities in this ecosystem. You have things like aquaculture pond is there. You have some processing plant. You have some offices, maybe fisheries offices, maybe some, yeah, again, some offices here. You have got something like some cold storages, some fish auction hall. You have got the fish berthing facilities here. You have got some mangroves, some agricultural area here. You have the boats that are berthed, the distant water boats. You have got the fishing operations, different types of fishing operations going on. You have the habitats, the critical habitats like the coral reefs. You have got so many organisms like the sharks, etc., etc. So this is a sort of a typical ecosystem. So if you want to have an ecosystem approach to management, you have to take care of the entire ecosystem, not the fishing operation alone. So you have to have the critical ecosystem, you have to have the processing, you have to have, so like that you have to have a sort of an inclusive approach if you want to have an ecosystem approach. So it is a strategy, ecosystem approach is a strategy for the integrated management of land, water, and living resources that promotes conservation and sustainable use in equitable way. That is very important. This equitable way. Every stakeholder is getting his equitable share from the ecosystem. So ecosystem approach can be stated as ecosystem-based management, and there are several terminologies. There is some difference between this terminology, but let us not go very much into that. So the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN is also talking very much about the ecosystem approach. So this is has become a sort of a global mantra, ecosystem approach for sustainable development. UN is talking very much about this. not only for the marine, but also the terrestrial and other ecosystems. So this is a very typical sustainable development goal. That is, you have to, when you talk about ecosystem approach, you have to talk about ecological well-being. All the organisms should be ecologically in a well-being state, fish or any other organism, and also human well-being is also equal. That is the economic well-being of the human, the societal well-being, the demographic well-being, the education, health of the human beings who are dependent on this system, which can be done by the good governance. So this is typically a sustainable development goal, which is also what the ecosystem approach talks about. Ecological well-being, human well-being, which is supported by good governance. This is what actually is the ecosystem approach as well. The key principles of ecosystem approach is principle one is good governance. You need to have a good policy, good governance, and you need to have appropriate scale of activity. For example, you have to know what is your scale of operation. Is it 100 square kilometer area, 10,000 square kilometer area? What are the types of issues which you are going to address? Are you going to address pollution and fish? Are you going to address climate change and habitat degradation? So the scale of approach you have to decide, and then increased participation by all the stakeholders, which I was mentioning earlier, and then multiple objectives. For example, ecosystem approach can address multiple objectives. Need not necessarily be the fisheries alone. It can address pollution. It can address climate change. It can address several other objectives, depending on what you are trying to focus. And then it can have the principle number 5 is cooperation and coordination, which is very, very important. You need to have the coordination and cooperation of all the stakeholders whom you are going to take into consideration for this approach. And then you need to have the adaptive management. By adaptive management, what we mean is that you have to adapt your intervention as you proceed with your adaptation. You will have to change you have to, from the lessons which you are learning during this adaptation measure, you have to take alternate measures when you do this. And then precautionary approach means that you may not have data on all these aspects. So you have to do precautionary. You have to take into consideration that you do not have the data. So you have to take into consideration that many of these ecosystems are at risk. So you have to take that into consideration and then go ahead with the adaptation options. You do not have proper information on the cyclones, you have to take into consideration, okay, every year we are getting cyclone on such and such time. So you be prepared for that. Whether cyclone is happening or not, you be prepared as a precautionary measure. So that's one example of what we mean by precautionary approach. So these are the 7 guiding principles if you want to have the ecosystem approach. And these are the 5 steps how to go about and implement ecosystem approach. Is that the first step is to have the planning of the ecosystem approach, that is define and scope. You define what is your management unit. The second one, I will go slightly into the details in the coming slide. Then you the second step is you identify your issues. Identifying issues is the main element in the ecosystem approach. You have to be very clear what is the issues in your location, and then you develop a management plan based on the issue and what goal you are having. Develop a management plan, ecosystem approach plan, and then is the implementation of the plan. And then you have to monitor, evaluate, and adapt how your implementation is progressing. And then you have to monitor the plan and adapt. If you want, you can make some changes. So then it's a cyclical process. So if you want to make changes, you make change and then follow this cyclical change. So it is a very long-term process. It's not that is, but it's a very, very inclusive approach, which will have very good result if you have this type of approach. So you have three phases: planning, doing, and then checking and improving on this. Maybe it's a long term, but it's a good system to start doing this. So step one is define a management unit. Here I'm saying this is fishery management unit, can be any management unit which you are trying. So you have to decide which location you are going to have this. Can be, let us say, for example, Gulf of Mannar. You take Park Bay, you take coastline of, let us say, a lagoon area or a lake estuarine area in Kerala. You take that area and you say that is the ecosystem which you are going to target for developing adaptation measure. It could be a fishery also. It need not necessarily be a spatial resolution. It could be a fishery. For example, you can say the trawl fishery operating in Chennai coast, which is operating in an area of, let us say, 1,000 square kilometer area. That could be your target. Your trawl fishery could be a target. Or you can have a species. For example, you can say tuna usual species. So I want to have a ecosystem management for the tuna. You take only tuna species and have a management for the tuna species, ecosystem management for the tuna species. So you have to define that management unit, and then you develop the vision. So what is your vision for that area? For example, you have the trawl fishery. What is your vision? You want to have a sustainable trawl fishery. You want to, what exactly? You want to have a profitable trawl fishery. What you are trying to arrive at? And then develop the goal and objectives for that. So you have to know the area as well as the volume of fishery in that. And then you identify the threats and issue. You have 15 threats. So for example, it is a trawl fishery. What is the threat and issue in that? The issue could be the bycatch, it could be an issue. The juvenile fishing could be an issue. Reducing catch could be an issue. And what are the threats in that? Threats could be the threat from outside the fishery area. For example, threat could be from, let us say, climate change. So climate change itself is an issue in your area. For example, you select a district, uh, let us say, let us say Gulf of Mannar as a threat, as your location, and or Park Bay as your location. And climate change is a major threat in that area. So you target climate change impact in the Gulf of Mannar area or in the Park Bay area. And what are the issues in that? So if you have issue like cyclone as a major issue, what are the other issues related to climate change and the other things also like degradation, etc., etc. So you have to select that issue and then prioritize those issues and define goal. What do you want to do? What do you want? What is your goal from identifying that issues, and then you develop the plan for the ecosystem approach. You develop the operational objectives for that. Suppose you have like you have the uh, cyclone as the major problem in your area. So what sort of a forewarning you should have? So what sort of an objective you want to have? And what if you have the sea level rise? So what is the objective you want to have? And what is the indicator and what is the benchmark now? So how much of area is eroded? How much of area is being is underwater now? And how much you expect to do? And then what is the management action you want to do for that? And then what is the finance you need for that? So these are some of the important plans, important measures you should have in your plan, and then you develop the plan for that. So this will be the actual framework that you will have. Like you have the vision, you have goal one, goal two, or you can have more goals. You can have objectives for each goal, and then you can have the action plan for each one. And just to give quickly some examples here. So you can see that there is a small scale fisheries in X district, or you can have in Gulf of Mannar. in Pog Bay, small scale fisheries in that location is sustained. That is your vision. And you can substitute it, you can have this goal. Vulnerability of fish resources is reduced. Could be your goal. Vulnerability could be due to climate change, could be due to overfishing. And also you can say goal number 2 is economic performance of fisheries is improved. Then other goals could be life and property is secure because of cyclone, things like that. You can have goal number 3. And then goal number 4 could be policies and acts are devised. So I'm just trying to give you 3 goals. If you see these, the first 2 goals are for the ecological well-being, which I showed. You remember that balance, which I showed, ecological well-being. Goal number 3 is the human well-being, and goal number 4 is good governance. So you can have this distributed for these 3 main agenda for this, and then you can have the objectives. I'm just giving you example. Regulate fishing effort, restore critical habitat. So if you regulate fishing effort and reduce the overfishing in that locality, let us say Pog Bay, then definitely if you regulate the fishing effort, you reduce the vulnerability of fish, you reduce the impact on the fish, and then automatically the impact of climate change is also taken care. If the fishes are relieved of stress because of overfishing, the fishes are able to face climate change, increase in temperature much better than if they are stressed because of overfishing. And then restoration of critical habitats like the mangroves, like climate change, and then how best to reduce the cost of fishing. There is going to be a separate talk, I think a couple of days later, on how to reduce the cost of fishing, how to reduce the economic cost of adaptation to climate change. And then you can have performance economic by developing the value chain, the market for that. So I'm just giving example. I'm not giving for each and every goal. I'm just giving example for these 2 goals. And then you can have the action plan for each one. Regulate the fishing ban period, which I told you earlier. Promote no taking zone. Improve on-board handling of fish, and then strengthen and storage facility. As I said, on-board handling, the ice making machine, cold storages, or even ice plant in the coastal, in the landing centers, etc. This is how it typically look like. And then is the implementation side. Implementation, you have to formalize, communicate, and engage the partners in this. As I said, it's an inclusive approach. A lot of partners are required and need to have formalization. Formalizing, what I mean is that put it in the form of as a memorandum of understanding. For example, with the fisheries department, with the fisheries associations, with the volunteer organizations, researchers, research institutions, so that there is a binding on these stakeholders and institutions, and then engage them. How best to, so you need to have separate the plan document as well as the implementation document after you develop for developing and implementing the plan. And then you have to continuously monitor and evaluate for adaptation. You have to see how your plan is working, how your implementation is working, whether you need to have a change in your plan, and so that it works better as you move along your plan and implementation. So to start EAFM, you need to have a EAFM or ecosystem approach team and facilitators. Identify the broad geographic area where you are going to do, develop a work plan, coordination with other agencies and government, identify stakeholders and organizations, establish key stakeholder groups, and determine legal basis for the eco. This can be done typically on a pilot scale, even by research organizations. Can be done on a small scale, on a pilot scale, in very key localities like the Pog Bay, or even in a smaller locality, in some lagoon. For example, in a Mutukadu lagoon or in some lagoon, you can follow this and you can do it. And then try to, after the pilot scale, you can try to expand it to a larger area based on the result which you are getting. But you need some project proposal, and you need some financing for that. It's not, it looks somewhat, what you need a partnership. That is all it is required, and proper planning, that is what it is required. So you need a team and facilitators for that. They will steer the process of this EA ecosystem approach. So I think this is my last slide. The key message from this is the ecosystem approach is inclusive. It needs stakeholder consultation, participation, co-management. These are at the heart of ecosystem approach. Many fisheries are already following this approach, and moving towards the approach does not require drastic change. What it requires is small steps through time. And you will be learning when you move across this and try to adapt yourself, but it takes time. But if you make a good beginning, definitely it will be very rewarding to adapt to not only to climate change, but to other issues related to fisheries and other ecosystem as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the nice presentation, sir.
Participants, if you have any queries or questions related to the session, you can raise your hand so that we will unmute and you can directly interact with the sir.
I think Dr. Kumaresan, sir, he want to interact with sir. He already raised the hand.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kumaresan, sir is here.
So before others join, I also would like to have some insights on this. Are there any examples happening in Indian ecosystem in this line, sir?
Yeah, actually, there are some examples, but I won't say it is a full-blown ecosystem approach. For example, if you see some of the areas in Kerala, there is a Ashtamudi Lake, right, in which this is being followed to have this approach is followed for sustainable management of clam fishery, in which you have all the 7 principles which I showed as stars, which I showed, all the principles are being met with. And because of this is being followed, the Marine Stewardship Council has given an eco-labeling certificate to the fishery that fishery is following ecosystem approach. So there is a good market for those clams, and the fishermen are benefited from that. But there are several other examples. Like I said, fishing ban could be one of the approach for the ecosystem approach, which is being followed in fisheries.
So if you sorry for the intervention. Most of the time, this kind of intervention happens only based on a particular, organism or particular economy, but it is not per se happening for the ecosystem as such. So kindly, I just wanted to see a kind of ecosystem approach in terms of the nature, not in terms of preservation of organism or preservation of ecosystem.
Yeah. See, that is what.
In that case, Tamil Nadu has a lot of areas. Even I would say Tamil Nadu has had a lot of, where riverine ecosystems joining the oceans, and most of them has lost their pristine, nature. So in Tamil Nadu requires a lot of such things to happen purely because in those days, if you go back 100 years, most of our rivers had waters.
Yeah.
But now almost all rivers has receded in getting waters, one thing. And even the only lifeline of Tamil Nadu, Kaveri, also is losing water now. And the only river, if at all we say, it's only Tamrabarni that at least sends water at least for 8 months to 9 months in a given year. Otherwise, all rivers are dead. So in that level, Tamil Nadu has to work a lot, especially working on the freshwater and marine water interface areas. So can somebody work on these areas, or what kind of advices they can offer for people to work on these areas?
Exactly. What you are flagging is very relevant here. So ecosystem approach can concentrate only on specific ecosystem. As you said, maybe the rivers could be one example. It could be, if it's a coastal area, it could be Park Bay, for example, the ecosystem as such. So it is on the interest and the issue which you are trying to flag, and the goal and the vision which you are trying to attain. So there are several other examples, but yours is a typical example of an ecosystem, spatial management.
Yes.
There could be other examples. As I said, maybe some people are interested in managing a particular resource. For example, the coral reefs. So you can have coral reef as your core management species, and then you can develop a management measure. You can have, for example, there are many ecosystem management measures for tunas, which are highly migratory.
Right.
So you can have, so it depends on your vision and your goal. So that's why you have to be very clear of your management unit, which you want to do, and then develop your plan. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have some few questions, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, as Seshadri sir said, in most of the even in our state, and as well as in the coastal part of the India, I think engineering-based solutions are only I think highlighted. It seems, even for example in Pondicherry, even for this wave breaker, they are now most of the government sector, they are providing only engineering-based solutions. In what way government is supporting for these kind of natural based solutions, sir?
Engineering solutions like you mean the walls, coastal wall.
Walls. I am giving an example as a coastal wall, but such kind of nature based approaches, in what way government is helping?
Yeah, nature-based is like, I think as far as I know, is the bioshield, like the mangroves, developing the mangrove forest, which could be the nature-based. That could be, I think it has been effectively proved by MSSRF that the mangroves are very effective as a bioshield to protect the coastal areas from getting inundated. It was proved in the tsunami also. So the government of India as well as government of Tamil Nadu is also having growing this mangrove forest. For example, MOEF has invested a lot of money, as far as I know, in Gujarat to develop coastal mangrove forests. And so that is working, as far as you know, that is working out well. So that could be one aspect. So in this case, suppose you want to develop, if you think that the coastal erosion or sea level rise is the core issue for you in a particular location, because I have got some experience, we try to develop a sort of a co-management plan for Kadalur district as well as Pondicherry. And we consulted the fishermen. We had several fishermen consultations, and they said that erosion is one big issue for them. And so we have sort of developed a co-management unit there, including the fishermen associations, individual fishermen, fisheries department, volunteer organizations. And then we have developed a co-management group there. And then, so since this fisheries department is also there, environment department is also there, it becomes easy for the fishermen to put their views and put their demand to these people so that they take it up to the higher authorities. We have the co-management group at village level, district level, and also at state level, three-tier approach we follow. So we have just formulated this team, and it has not still started functioning. So this also, you can say, to some extent, we can call it as ecosystem approach. So the fishermen have come out with the issue. The stakeholders have come out with the issue. So this is our problem. And we are trying to develop the goal and objectives and trying to find finance and also the authorities who can try to solve their problem. It could be even mangrove plantation.
Sir, and one more question. You already as a researcher, if you are throwing some of the proposal to any agency or to any stakeholder, people will say that yes, there is a climate change and there is a problem, and most of the research is based on focused on the societal. Actually, all the they only support for human related societal problem to get adapted only. I'm will you give any kind of solution or answer for these kind of things? Even when you said there is a problem in latitudinal changes in the fishes, they are migrating towards latitude. For such kind of problem arises, even we have to study about the adaptation of this lower animal. So in that kind of thing, is government is supporting for those kind of researchers in these areas?
Yeah, definitely. If you when you say that the government is more interested on the fishermen or the human welfare well-being, so that's what if you remember that balance which I showed, one is ecological well-being, human well-being, and the good governance. So all these three should be together. See how human well-being comes. These human beings are dependent on the ecology. They are dependent, can be coral reefs. Coral reefs support fishes, and because of the fish population is increasing. Okay, so unless you save the corals or the mangroves, the fish population is not going to increase. If the fish population is increasing, only the fishermen are also getting their share in the catch. So you need to have an ecological well-being so that the fishermen well-being is there. This has to be supported by good governance. That is the basis. So your second thing is on that, okay, the low value organisms are increasing in some locations, and some locations the fishes are migrating, going to some other locations. So what we need to do is that if that is an issue. For example, the fishermen are finding that some fishes are entering into their fishery, which they do not know how to process it. There is no market for that. They're unable to sell it, and they don't have proper gear to catch it. So when the oil sardine reached Maharashtra and Gujarat, they did not have proper gear for that. So they have to develop small mesh size net, and they have to use proper craft and gear. So if that is a problem, that is an issue for you. So you have to develop a plan for that as a main focus. So if you develop main focus of catching that fish, developing the market for that, and help them to sell this, and then the human well-being comes. So the fishermen are happy over that, and you have to develop the governance mechanism for that. So you have to develop proper fishing regulation for that, for which you need the Fishing Regulation Act for that. So you keep these unconventional resources as the focus of your planning, and then you develop your plan. So finding the issue and what is the goal for you, what is the objective for you, that is the important point from which you start you can find answer to any of the questions, any of the issue, but you have to find out the issue first.
Yes, I think Dr. Nagaratnam sir is here. I want to hear from you, sir.
Nice meeting Dr. Nagaratnam again. Discussing
Yes,
with
sir. Thank you. We had a very wonderful time with you, sir, actually. And you have sincerely articulated the facts around to it, and also many of the information you have provided is out of my discipline,
subject.
though I enjoyed that. As I enjoyed that you have differently told about the ecosystem and also the management aspect of the coastal and the resources. As well as for the young researchers who are all here, they can also find some useful information for their research. Definitely, sir. I think that we should thank for your wonderful presentation this time, and also everyone present here also enjoyed your presentation, I hope. And also I thank Dr. Inbakandan also for making this event possible and with your guidance, sir.
Thank you,
this,
Professor.
this
Thank you.
is what I wanted to say.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the participant named Swayam Prabha Das has one query, sir. I have
Yeah.
unmuted her. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Ma'am, you
Good
can.
evening.
Yes.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Vivekanandan. I'm
Yeah.
Swayam Prabha. I
Okay.
had met with you long time back when I was working with WWF with the Marine Program. And
Okay.
I'm so grateful you mentioned the MSc certification for the clam fisheries in Kerala. And I was quite involved with that process from WWF.
Yeah.
So it's such a pleasure and an honor to hear you again, sir.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
brings back very fond memories of my work.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
My simple question is I completely agree with you, sir, on the ecosystem based management. And also, my first question is already answered by you that there's a shifting in the fisheries because of sea temperature rise. And how do we apply the ecosystem based management approach to it? I think you have very well articulated it in earlier, sir. So, if you would like to add more to that, probably. My second question is why in India are we so shy of declaring marine protected areas or areas of special planning for fisheries and for livelihoods, whereas small island countries like Seychelles and others have gone out and declared 30% of their EEZ as MPAs. Um, so it's quite concerning because we also have two island ecosystems which are very well protected, if I may say so. But why aren't we going for a network of marine protected areas? We have all the elements, I trust, that would, push for that. Is it just a policy, science and policy interface that is preventing it? Or it is just the political will that is preventing it? What is it from your point of view? Why are we not pushing for marine protected areas and fisheries special planning areas, sir? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Uh, I think your first thing is that like sea level rise and all, we will not be able to do much in the near future unless there is a mitigation and things like that. So what we are trying to do for sea level rise is to address the other issues. What are the impacts and adapt to that. Okay, maybe uh, rehabilitation or some safety measures, etc. I think that's all we can do as far as adaptation is concerned. Your second question is more tricky, I would say, and also more challenging because marine protected area, I think there are the main problem is that, see, in India, on an average, for every 2 kilometers of the coastline, there is a fishing village, or could be a village, a coastal village, on an average about 2 kilometers. So there is a lot of human population in the coastal areas. So if you, particularly the fishing population also, so if you declare a marine protected area, there is a fear among the fishermen and the coastal population that their livelihood is affected. That is one reason. So that is why the political will, as you say, is also is not there to a very large extent. So if you, to overcome this issue, I think it's not going to be very easy to overcome this issue. I think there has to be a sort of a lot of awareness has to come among the stakeholders that for a long-term benefits of sustainable benefits, sustainable development, you need to have this type of instruments like the marine protected area. Because once you have the marine protected area, the surrounding areas, the spillover areas, what we call, will be benefited because there will be a lot of productivity in those areas. So that sort of an awareness has to be brought into that, but that has to be done jointly again. See, for example, you have flagged a very right point. Why marine protected area is not being followed much in India? That is an issue. So that is an issue which you can try to address. Take a small area and say, which you think that it requires a marine protected area, but it is not there. You can take, I can tell you the example of Park Bay in the southern part. You have in other parts as well. So, so if you want to have a marine protected area, what sort of a planning you require? Who should be the stakeholders? And what could be the financial implications? How to go about and do that? I think that could be itself could be an issue which you can try to address. Then you will learn on the way who is the stumbling block and how you can overcome that. If there is a stumbling block, you put them in your project and tell them you are also responsible for that. You know, it could be a bureaucrat at the top level, maybe very difficult to get them. But organizations like WWF with the institutional arrangement, research institutions and other organizations in India, I think you can take some stuff. You can do it on a pilot scale now. That's my suggestion.
Sir, sorry for the intervention. I just want to add some more information to this. It is not only coastal ecosystem, even the terrestrial ecosystem is
Yeah, exactly.
take in India. We know the Western Ghats, we know the Himalayas, and we know the Gulf of Mannar Biosphere Reserve, how it worked. Gulf of Mannar Biosphere is not too young. It's almost 2 decades old story, we would say. But more than bureaucracy, I want to see the literacy of politicians is more important. Political literacy is very poor or juvenile, you would say. If you take other countries, even US or developed countries, the leaders understand how the country want to be after some years. But here, we don't have a political will, or as you said, political will, or more than political will, political literacy has to be enhanced here for people to understand what will be the consequences if at all they try to exploit this in a very worst manner. So this is important. Unless otherwise this happens, India is not going to change that easily. Thank you, sir.
I have just given an example from marine side, but this is applicable, I mean, to terrestrial, Himalaya, or whatever. I just given an example of marine side. Thank you for your comments.
There is one more question, if I may be allowed to ask,
Yes,
sir.
yes, ma'am.
or-
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can proceed.
Yeah. There is a new finance mechanisms that's in operation globally right now, but we seem to be in a very nascent stage when it comes to the concepts of blue bonds. I may also add that presently I'm working with UNTP in India, not with WWF anymore, so with UNTP. And we do have these financing mechanisms that we've been talking about, which is called the blended finance, which is also called the blue bonds. And that
Yeah.
is what Seychelles has applied. Do you
Okay.
think, sir, that there is a possibility of us, I'm asking it from a very futuristic point of view, that
Yeah.
would you see or do you recommend that we can try a blended finance mechanism with any of the coastal communities where
Yeah.
we are protecting not just the livelihoods and the fisheries, but also providing them a social security and should I say protection against
Yeah.
dramatic or drastic climate change impacts? Would you see anywhere where we can apply this as a pilot case?
Definitely. I think that would be a good initiative, definitely. You can try. I'm not able to say where exactly you can. I don't know your scale of operation. I'm not sure. I'm not able to offhand say where you can do, but uh, I'm quite sure that this will be a very good initiative. I'm quite optimistic about it.
And we haven't tried it in India so far, is what
Okay.
I believe. But
Mhm.
we can possibly try it out. So I'll
Yeah.
reach out to you separately, probably
Yeah. Okay.
to see
Yeah.
how we can probably see how we do it. So
Sure.
thank you
Maybe.
so much, sir. Yeah,
Okay. Welcome. Welcome.
yeah, it's an honor, sir.
Yeah.
Honor
Thank you.
to hear you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, Anu?
One more question is there, sir.
Yeah, please.
So this is from Nagamani. How should the systems of nature protection and biodiversity of natural ecosystem be dispersed in order to increase the effectiveness of the systems and reduce the scale of degradation of natural environment?
Can you, your voice was breaking. Can you repeat again?
Yes, sir, I will repeat again, sir.
Yeah.
How should the systems of nature protection and biodiversity of natural ecosystem be dispersed in order to increase the effectiveness of these systems and reduce the scale of degradation of the natural environment?
Okay, I think the answer could be, if you want, for biodiversity conservation, if you have it in a one specific location, if it is your target, I think the best way is like what we were discussing, is to have marine protected area or no take zone. There are many things. There are a lot of differences here. It could be MPA, it could be no take zone, or seasonal ban on fishing activity, or some of these things. So if you can select the location, and if you can select the location and see that you want to protect the biodiversity in that location, and what are the species which you want to protect, then it becomes easier whether you want to have total MPA, or you want to have only no take zone, or you have to have a seasonal ban. For example, if you want to protect the sea cucumber, which is already a protected species, which is banned actually. But if you want to totally ban that, or you want to have some sort of a regulated harvest of some species. So if you are clear about what species you want to protect, or if you want to protect all the species in a particular locality, then you definitely you can have natural mechanism like the protecting by using marine protected area, and keep no take zone, no fishing zone. There are a lot of things which you can do once you are clear about what you want to protect. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So can you kindly give the email ID address of users? Participants are asking.
In where? In the message,
Yes, sir.
Actually, I will.
you will circulate.
Sir, I will circulate, sir. No problem,
Okay,
sir.
okay, sir. No
Thank
issue,
you.
sir.
Thank you.
Sir,
Thank
I
you,
have
sir.
one question, sir.
Yeah.
Being in an academia institution, I is in Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology. Actually, what kind of measurements we have taken that climate change based adaptation education, sir? Can you
Education.
advise?
Yeah.
It? Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually very important. See, if you mean in your institution, or for a community education?
Actually, I just want the both answers, sir.
Okay, okay. I think for education, in fact, in India, climate change has to be educated at all levels, from the grassroots up to the top bureaucrats, and also politicians also. It is required. So if you want to have, you have to develop a sort of a curriculum at every level. If the students are your target, you have to develop a curriculum for that. If faculty is your target, you have to develop a curriculum for that, and come out with, okay, I will conduct some training program, some awareness program, and what exact type of program. Say, for example, this ecosystem approach, which we are talking about, there are different types of training programs for different levels. For top bureaucrats, you have half-an-hour program. For researchers, Department of Fisheries, you have 5-day program. Okay, so if you can develop a curriculum for that, that itself is a big contribution. See, for students, okay, I want to give a 3 months program, let us say a certificate program on climate change. And this is the syllabus, this is the curriculum I want to have for students. And we want to give it for, let us say, the faculty. The faculty may not sit for 3 months. Okay, I want to give it for 1 week. And this is the curriculum we want to develop. We want to give it for government officials. maybe they may not be sitting for more than 5 days, and develop like that. So you have key stakeholders, fishermen separately in local language and to their interest. So if you can have 5 or 6 different clusters of stakeholders, you develop it for them. And you have to tune to your interest also. Whom do you want to target? And at what sequence you want to target? Then a curriculum can be developed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You can do that. I think it's not very difficult. You can do that. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Actually, we will have a discussion, sir,
Okay.
regarding that. Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Anu,
Yes, sir.
any other question?
Kumaresan, yeah, Kumaresan sir is there, sir.
Kumaresan, sir?
Yes, yes, sir. I'm here. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, very good informative talk from our stalwart or Vivekanandan sir. Actually, we had information about all the aspects covering the adaptations of ecosystem.
Yeah.
So my application is actually the blue economy. How it helps?
I think there is echo. I am not able
Sir,
to.
actually, he
He is
want to
asking.
ask about the blue economy, how it will helpful in
Tsunami.
this climate change adaptation.
Tsunami.
Blue economy.
Blue economy
Blue
program,
economy.
sir.
Oh, okay.
Blue economy, sir.
Okay. Blue economy is actually what you are. Blue refers to the ocean or the coastal area, and what type of economy you want to develop from that. So blue economy could be different things. Improving fisheries could be a blue economy. Improving the economy from mangroves could be a blue economy. You can have carbon sequestration uh, by the mangroves. So if you develop mangrove forest, your sequestration increases. So you can have carbon trading from that. So fisheries could be a blue economy. Coral reef, from coral reef you can develop blue economy. So blue economy, you can have different arms of blue economy in that. So blue economy is becoming popular now of late. So you can suppose you want to develop blue economy. It could be from freshwater system as well. It is mainly from the aquatic system. Could be from the ocean as well as from the freshwater system. So if you identify one particular location and find out what is the biodiversity present there, what is the occupation of the people present there, whether fishing is there or any other organism is there exploiting or any other minerals are there, what are the things that are present in that aquatic system, then you can develop blue economy for that system, for that ecosystem you can develop. It will be one district or it could be one particular ecosystem. So if you select the system and say that these are the composition of that system, then you can think of developing a mangrove forest. You cannot develop mangrove forest everywhere. You can develop it in one certain places. You cannot have coral reefs in that. So you cannot have some fishes everywhere. So you have to, where do you want to develop this blue economy, which is your target location, and what are the composition in the target location, who are the stakeholders, who are the partners who will be willing, then you can develop that.
Sir, tourism is also an integral part of the blue economy, sir.
Yeah, it
And
is. It is. It's
that
a
gives,
very powerful economy. Yeah.
yes, sir, and that holds true for most of the small island states, developing states,
Yeah.
because that is what runs their economy, sir.
Exactly. Exactly. So blue economy includes tourism as well. You can include tourism and yeah, definitely. Thank you for the input. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? I think it is almost 8 o'clock. Sir,
Yeah.
shall we wind up the program, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
I
sir.
think so. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much, sir, Uh, Actually, it's a wonderful presentation, and even the interaction is very nice. Hope all the participants will enjoy with the thing whatever you have narrated for this ecosystem-based adaptation approach. And thanks a lot for being with us, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Thank you for this opportunity that is given to me, and also for the very excellent discussion which we had. And I thank Dr. Inbakandan and your entire team for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Shashatri, sir. Thank you, sir. And all the
Thank you.
participants. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a
Thank you.
lot.
Thank you all. So regarding information regarding the tomorrow session, so it will be the topic is prospects of technological interventions by Dr. Grinsen George, Senior Program Specialist in Fisheries from SARC Agriculture Center, Bangladesh. So kindly join the session at 6. So try to join the session before 10 minutes before the session, and thank you all.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good
Bye.
night,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thank you.